The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with quiet conversations, the air thick with the usual arrogance of its members. Representatives of hundreds of species filled the vast, circular hall, their holographic displays glowing softly as they discussed matters of trade, politics, and war. To them, today was just another day of debates and negotiations. But then, a transmission interrupted the session, and everything changed. A Zervax official, his dark, armored skin gleaming under the council's lights, stood up. His sharp mandibles clicked together in satisfaction as he addressed the assembly. With a voice laced with pride, he announced that his empire had secured valuable assets, human children, taken from an outer colony. The room fell silent. Some delegates gasped, others exchanged uneasy glances. Even the coldest diplomats of the galaxy knew that interfering with humans was a dangerous game. A representative of the Valteri, a species known for their intelligence and long lifespan, spoke first. His voice was calm, but edged with concern. He asked why the Zervax would take such a risk. Humans were unpredictable, dangerous when provoked. The Zervax official scoffed, dismissing the concern with a wave of his clawed hand. They were just children, he explained, hostages to ensure human cooperation in future conflicts. If humanity had any sense, they would comply. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. A Xilari ambassador, whose species had once faced human forces in battle, leaned forward. He recalled the last time someone underestimated humanity. Their warships were crude but devastating, their strategies unpredictable, their sheer willpower terrifying. They did not fight for conquest or resources. They fought for their own, with a level of fury unmatched in the galaxy. He warned the council, if the Zervax had truly taken human children, they had made a mistake that could not be undone. Despite the warnings, the council laughed. What could a primitive race do against an empire as vast as the Zervax? The humans were strong, yes, but they were not invincible. The council had seen their limits before. If they wanted their offspring returned, they would have to negotiate on Zervax terms. As the laughter faded, a new voice cut through the chamber. A human ambassador, Elias Carter, stepped forward, his expression unreadable. He had been silent until now, observing, waiting. He did not look angry. He did not raise his voice. He simply asked one question. Where were the children? The Zervax official chuckled, refusing to answer. The children were safe, he said, but their return depended on humanity's willingness to cooperate. The room went still. The council members expected Carter to argue, to plead, to bargain. Instead, he reached into his pocket, pulled out a small communication device, and pressed a button. Nothing happened. At first, the Zervax official smirked, thinking it was some pathetic human trick. Then, the lights in the chamber flickered. A warning alert appeared on every holographic display. Security reports flooded in. Entire Zervax fleets had gone silent. Not destroyed. Not attacked. Just silent. No distress signals. No escape pods. No communication at all. The smug look on the Zervax official's face vanished. His claws trembled as he tried to contact his people, but there was no response. The council chamber erupted into chaos. Delegates shouted, trying to understand what was happening. The Zervax demanded answers, but Carter simply stood there, watching. Finally, he spoke again. His voice was quiet, but it carried through the entire room. The children would be returned. Immediately. Unharmed. If not, the Zervax would cease to exist by sunrise. The Zervax official sneered, calling the threat ridiculous. His empire was powerful, its fleets unmatched. Humanity could not possibly challenge them on such a scale. But then, another report came in. Zervax colonies, entire planets, had vanished from the network. Not attacked, not invaded, just erased. For the first time in its history, the Galactic Council felt fear. The Galactic Council chamber was in chaos. Delegates shouted over one another, demanding explanations, demanding action. The Zervax official, who had so proudly announced the capture of human children, was now frantically trying to contact his people. His claws danced over his communicator, his mandibles clicking in growing panic. But there was no response. The Zervax fleets, their proud armadas, had gone silent. Their colonies, entire planets, were no longer responding. Elias Carter stood in the center of the storm, his expression unreadable. He had not raised his voice. He had not made any direct threats. He had simply pressed a button, and the entire balance of power in the galaxy had shifted. The silence of the Zervax was not an accident. It was a message. The Council's leader, a towering reptilian being known as Chancellor Drechtal, slammed his fist on the table. He demanded answers. What had the humans done? What kind of weapon could erase entire fleets without firing a single shot? The Council had always believed humans were dangerous, but this was something beyond their understanding. Carter sighed and finally spoke, his voice calm but carrying the weight of something unspoken. He explained, in simple terms, that humanity had long prepared for this moment. They had studied every empire, every war, every betrayal in galactic history. They knew, from the moment they joined the stars, that sooner or later someone would come for their children. And so, they had prepared. The council members bristled. Some shouted that this was an act of war. Others demanded proof. The Zervax official, his confidence shattered, struggled to stand. His kind had ruled over lesser species for centuries. They had enslaved entire worlds, but never had they encountered an enemy that did not just fight back, but erased them. Carter met his gaze with an expression of cold finality. Humanity did not seek war, he said. They did not wish for conflict, but there were lines that could not be crossed. Taking human children was one of them. The Zervax had crossed it, and now they would face the consequences. A trembling voice broke through the tension. It was from a smaller delegate, a member of a species known for their neutrality. They asked a simple question. What did humanity want? Carter's response was just as simple. The children. Safe. Home. Now. The council chamber fell silent. The Zervax official, still reeling, realized he had no choice. He sent the order. Within moments, reports came in. The human children were being released, every single one of them. No conditions, no negotiations. Carter waited until the confirmation came through. Then, and only then, he pressed the button again. A moment later, Zervax fleets reappeared on the Council's network. Their planets, their colonies, all systems restored. The Zervax official collapsed into his seat, breathing heavily. The lesson was clear. Humanity had not destroyed them. They had simply let them glimpse what true fear felt like. And then, just as calmly as he had arrived, Carter turned and left. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The Zervax had made the unthinkable mistake of taking human children, and now, the Galactic Council had witnessed something they never expected, true, undeniable human power. In every corner of the council chamber, whispers grew into frantic discussions. What had the humans done? Their ships had not moved. Their weapons had not fired. And yet, the Zervax fleet, the pride of an empire, had been silenced in an instant. Chancellor Drechtal paced in frustration. He had seen many wars, many threats, but nothing like this. He turned to Elias Carter, the human diplomat who had just forced the entire council into submission with nothing but a quiet voice and a single command. You cannot simply threaten entire civilizations over a handful of children. The Chancellor roared. Carter's gaze was cold, unmoving. You misunderstand, Chancellor, he said. This was not a threat. It was a reminder. The council chamber fell silent once again. The weight of his words pressed down on everyone. The humans had never been the aggressors. They had joined the galactic community in peace. They had abided by the council's rules. But now, for the first time, the galaxy was seeing what humanity had kept hidden. The Zervax official, barely holding himself together, finally spoke. His voice trembled. What? What did you do to our fleets? Carter tilted his head slightly. We turned them off. The words were simple, but the meaning behind them sent chills through the room. The Zervax had always believed themselves untouchable. Their technology was considered superior. Their fleet was vast, unchallenged. And yet, with one silent command, humanity had made them disappear. The realization settled in. The council members exchanged nervous glances. If humans had this kind of power, why had they never used it before? What else were they capable of? A representative from the Xilari, a species known for their intelligence, finally broke the silence. You mean to tell us, he said carefully, that your species has been capable of this all along? Carter gave a small, knowing smile. Did you really believe we would enter the stars unprepared? The council had underestimated them. They had seen humans as another young race, one that could be manipulated, controlled, or even conquered. But now, they were beginning to understand the truth. Chancellor Drechtal exhaled heavily. And what if we had not returned the children? Carter's expression darkened. Then you would have learned exactly how far we are willing to go. The words sent a shiver down the spines of every being in the room. The humans had not needed warships, armies, or grand speeches. Their actions had spoken for them. The Zervax officials swallowed hard and sent the final order. The last of the human children, unharmed and terrified, were placed on transport ships headed back to Earth. As the confirmation came through, Carter nodded in satisfaction. Then he turned to the rest of the council, his voice firm. Let this be the last time anyone forgets what humanity truly is. And with that, he walked away, leaving behind a room full of leaders who now understood the cost of their arrogance. The Zervax homeworld was in chaos. The once proud empire, known for its ruthless efficiency and military strength, had been brought to its knees in a matter of hours. Their leaders sat in stunned silence, staring at the reports flooding in from across their territories. Entire fleets had gone dark, their systems unresponsive. Their most advanced planetary defenses were useless. The humans had not fired a single shot. On the Galactic Council station, Chancellor Drechtal watched the transmission with a mix of horror and awe. He had always believed humans were formidable, but this was something else entirely. Their ability to disable Zervax technology without warning or explanation was beyond anything the Council had ever encountered. Elias Carter stood at the center of the chamber, calm and composed. His expression held no anger, no malice, only certainty. Your forces are now powerless, he stated plainly. Your ships, your weapons, your communication networks, all of it is under our control. The Zervax ambassador, a towering figure with deep crimson scales, trembled. What do you want? He stammered. Carter folded his hands behind his back. Simple. Return our children. The ambassador flinched. We didn't mean. Carter's gaze sharpened. You kidnapped human children, he said, his voice quiet but firm. You thought they were leverage. You thought we would beg, negotiate, or bargain for their return. That was your first mistake. The council chamber was dead silent. Even species who had once viewed humanity as insignificant were now watching with newfound respect and fear. Drechtal finally spoke, his voice low and measured. Humanity has never displayed this kind of technological dominance before. Why now? Carter's eyes locked onto the Chancellor. Because until now, you never gave us a reason. The weight of those words pressed down on every soul in the room. Humanity had not been hiding because they were weak. They had been watching, waiting, and hoping they would never need to show their true power. The Zervax ambassador's breathing was unsteady. You could have destroyed us. Carter nodded. We still can. The threat was not an empty one, and everyone in the room knew it. A chime echoed through the chamber, signaling an incoming transmission. The Zervax Emperor himself had sent a message. The children were being released immediately, unharmed, and escorted back to human space. Carter inclined his head slightly. Wise decision. As the message confirmed the transport was en route, the tension in the room did not lift. If anything, it grew heavier. "You have made an enemy of the Zervax," the ambassador rasped. Carter smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "No, we gave you a warning, one you won't forget." Without another word, he turned and walked out, leaving the entire Galactic Council to grasp the new reality they now lived in, a galaxy where humanity was not to be crossed. The Zervax homeworld was quiet, too quiet. Their massive cities, usually filled with the hum of industry and the chatter of billions, now lay still. Their fleets, once feared across the stars, floated helplessly in space, their systems unresponsive. The power that had once made them an empire had vanished in a single day. The Galactic Council chamber was just as silent. Every representative present understood the gravity of what had just happened. The Zervax had made a mistake, perhaps the greatest mistake in the history of the galaxy, and now they were paying the price. Elias Carter stood at the center of the chamber, unshaken. His presence was not one of aggression, but of certainty. The weight of human power had been revealed, and there was no turning back. Chancellor Drektal, the leader of the Galactic Council, cleared his throat. "The Zervax have agreed to return the human children," he announced, though his voice was not triumphant. "They swear they were not harmed." Carter did not react. His face remained unreadable as he listened to the Chancellor's words. The Zervax ambassador, still trembling, lowered his head. It was a miscalculation. Carter's gaze did not waver. "You thought taking human children would force us to negotiate. Instead, it forced you to surrender." The ambassador flinched. He wanted to protest, to justify his people's actions, but he knew it was pointless. The entire galaxy had seen what had happened. Drektal exhaled slowly. "Humanity's actions today, they have changed everything." There was no doubt about that. The balance of power had shifted. The once mighty Zervax were crippled, and every other species in the chamber was left wondering, what else had humanity been hiding? The council chamber, usually a place of debate and argument, was filled with only one thing now: fear. Carter turned toward the gathered representatives, his expression calm but firm. "Humanity has no interest in ruling the galaxy," he said. "We do not seek war. We do not seek conflict." Some of the council members relaxed slightly, but then Carter's next words sent a chill through the room. "But if you ever harm our people again, if you ever dare to take what is ours, there will be no negotiations. There will be no second chances." The silence that followed was absolute. Carter gave a small nod to Drektal, then turned and walked toward the exit. The moment he left, quiet whispers filled the chamber. The galaxy had been forever changed, and everyone in that room knew it. The Zervax had learned their lesson. But the real question now was, would the rest of the galaxy heed the warning? Or would they, too, push humanity too far? The Zervax homeworld was in shambles. Though no battles had been fought, no blood spilled, their defeat was absolute. Their fleets were paralyzed, their planetary defenses disabled, and their communication networks in chaos. The mighty Zervax Empire, which had once prided itself on its strength, was now a broken husk. The Galactic Council chamber remained tense. Every representative knew what had happened, but none dared to speak first. The weight of humanity's silent power hung over them all. Elias Carter, the human envoy, stood in the center of the room, composed as ever. His face betrayed no emotion, but his presence alone was enough to keep the council in check. Chancellor Drektal finally found his voice. "The Zervax have fully complied. The human children have been returned safely." Carter remained quiet for a moment, then gave a small nod. That was the only acceptable outcome. The Zervax ambassador, a being who once spoke with arrogance, now seemed frail. His scaled hands trembled as he tried to form words. "We did not understand. We thought humanity would." "Would what?" Carter interrupted, his voice eerily calm. "Beg? Plead? Offer you a deal?" The ambassador flinched. Carter took a slow step forward. "Let me be very clear," he said. "Humanity is not like the others in this chamber. We do not forget, and we do not forgive easily." Drechtel's spines twitched nervously. "Ambassador Carter, I must ask, how did you do it? How did you disable the Zervax fleets, their entire infrastructure, without a single attack?" Carter glanced at the Chancellor, but did not answer. The truth was simple. Humanity had always been far more advanced than the galaxy had assumed. They had watched, waited, and when the moment arrived, acted with precision. The Zervax ambassador swallowed hard. "What happens now?" Carter tilted his head slightly. "That depends on you." The ambassador shuddered. We surrender." A murmur spread through the chamber. The mighty Zervax Empire, brought to its knees by humans without a war, was now openly admitting defeat. Carter finally smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Good. As he turned to leave, a single thought remained in the minds of every being in that room. Humanity was not to be underestimated. Not now. Not ever. The Galactic Council chamber was quieter than it had ever been. Fear clung to the air, thick and suffocating. Every representative present had just witnessed the impossible. The Zervax, one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy, had surrendered without a single human firing a shot. Elias Carter stood at the center of the room, watching them all. His expression was unreadable, but his presence was enough to send a clear message. Humanity had drawn a line, and no one would dare cross it again. Chancellor Drechtel finally spoke, his voice strained. "The Zervax have agreed to a full diplomatic withdrawal. They will not act against humanity again." Carter nodded. "That would be wise." The Zervax ambassador, his once proud demeanor shattered, stepped forward. We acknowledge our mistake." His voice wavered. "We swear on the honor of our people, we will never harm a human again." Carter remained silent, letting the weight of the moment settle in. Then he turned his gaze toward the rest of the council. "Let this be a lesson to all of you," he said. "Humanity does not seek war. We do not seek control. But if you harm our people, we will respond. And when we do, there will be no warning, no negotiation, only consequences." The silence was absolute. Some council members looked away. Others shifted uncomfortably, but no one dared to argue. Drechtel exhaled slowly. "Humanity's strength, it is beyond anything we imagined." Carter didn't deny it. "You made assumptions about us. You assumed we were weak because we spoke of peace. You assumed we would bargain because we sought diplomacy." His voice was steady, controlled. "You assumed wrong. The lesson had been learned. The question now was whether the rest of the galaxy would remember it." Carter turned and walked out of the chamber, leaving the council to their whispered fears. Humanity had spoken, and the galaxy would never be the same.